Nobody in the Grand Joseon Hotel lobby moved. Nobody breathed. 30 people, guests, staff, bodyguards, stood frozen as Chisholm Kong faced the woman who had just walked back into her husband's life carrying a 3-year-old boy and the audacity of someone who had been rehearsing this moment for years. Yuna was immaculate. The child was beautiful. And the smile on her face was the smile of a woman who believed she had already won. "I think it's time your husband met his son," she said, loud enough for every person in that lobby to hear. 7 months pregnant, blindsided, in a room full of witnesses. Chisholm looked at the little boy, looked at Yuna. Then she lifted her eyes to her husband's face, read everything in it in 2 seconds flat, and turned back to Yuna with an expression so calm it was terrifying. "That child," she said quietly, changes nothing. And before Yuna could speak, before anyone in that lobby could breathe, Chisholm opened her bag, produced a single folded document, and placed it on the concierge desk between them. "But this does. Welcome to Afrohan Tales Besties. If you're new here, you are so welcome to the family. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing stories like this." Now let's go back to where it all began. Chisholm Adeyemi did not come to Seoul looking for a mafia boss. She came for jollof rice, specifically to win the argument she had been having with her cousin Adiz for 6 months about whether Nigerian jollof or Ghanaian jollof was superior, an argument that had somehow resulted in Chisholm agreeing to cater a Lagos-Seoul cultural exchange event and flying 12 hours to prove a point about rice. She was 30, curvy, beautiful in the way that stops conversations, and possessed of the particular confidence of a woman who has never needed a room's permission to exist in it. She ran a catering company in Lagos that had grown from her mother's kitchen into a full event operation with 12 staff and a waiting list. She was, by every measure, exactly where she was supposed to be in life. Then she walked into the wrong kitchen. The cultural exchange event was held at a private compound in Yongsan, and the kitchen she had been assigned was apparently also being used by the compound's owner, who arrived at 6:30 in the morning while Chisholm was elbow-deep in prep work and looked at her the way no man had looked at her before. Not with appreciation exactly, though that was there too, but with the particular attention of someone who has just seen something they did not know they were looking for. "Who are you?" he said. "The person making your kitchen smell incredible," she said without turning around. "Who are you?" A pause. "The person who owns the kitchen." She turned around then, looked at him, tall, Korean, dark-eyed, the kind of face that belonged on a drama poster, wearing a charcoal suit at 6:30 in the morning like some people wore casual clothes. Something in his stillness made the back of her neck prickle. Not fear. Something adjacent to it. "Kong Saiwin," he said. She had Googled the compound's owner the night before. She knew exactly who Kong Saiwin was. "Chisholm Adeyemi," she said. "I'll be out of your kitchen by 9. "Take your time," he said. He poured himself a glass of water, leaned against the counter, and watched her work with the focused attention of a man who has nowhere else to be. She ignored him with the focused energy of a woman who is not going to give him the satisfaction of being flustered. By 8:30 they had been talking for 2 hours about everything except why either of them was in this kitchen. By 9 she had not left. By 10 he had eaten more of her food than she had planned to prepare and had told her 3 things about himself that she suspected he had never told anyone. By the end of the week he had asked her to dinner 4 times. She had said no 3 times. The 4th time she said yes because she was running out of good reasons to say no and she was tired of pretending the reasons she had left were the real ones. They were married 11 months later. Fast by anyone's standards. Reckless by the standards of a woman who had watched her mother warn her about men who moved too fast and wanted too much. But Chisholm had looked at Kong Saiwin across every dinner table and every phone call and every 3 a.m. conversation that lasted until sunrise, and she had seen, clearly without question, a man who was exactly what he appeared to be in private even when he was something entirely different in public. The private version was the one she had chosen. The public version she had walked into with her eyes open. His world was dangerous. She knew it. She had asked him directly on the 4th date, "What exactly do you do?" And he had looked at her for a long moment and told her the truth. All of it, without softening a single edge. She had sat with that truth for 3 days. Then she had called him and said, "I have questions." "Ask them," he said. She asked every one. He answered every one. And when she was finished, she said, "I'm not afraid of your world, Saiwin. I'm only afraid of being lied to inside it." I will never lie to you, he said. She believed him. She had believed him every day since. Now she was 7 months pregnant with their daughter, and her life and soul was the life she had built deliberately, carefully, exactly the way she wanted it. And everything in it was about to be tested by a woman with a 3-year-old boy and 3 years of patience and a plan that Chisholm had exactly 20 minutes to dismantle before it became a permanent problem. The call came from Byung-go, Siwon's most senior lieutenant. On a Tuesday afternoon, while Chisholm was reviewing menu plans for a private event she was catering the following week. Her catering company had expanded into Seoul 8 months after the wedding, and she had built it here the same way she had built it in Lagos. From nothing, from her own hands, from the particular determination of a woman who refuses to be defined entirely by who she married. Byung-go's voice on the phone was careful in the way of a man handling something he did not know how to handle. Mrs. Kong, there is a situation at the compound. A woman has arrived. She has a child with her. She is claiming. He stopped, cleared his throat. She is claiming the child belongs to Mr. Kong. Chisholm set down her pen. What is her name? She said. Yuna. Han Yuna. She was, before you, she and Mr. Kong were. I know who she was, Chisholm said. Siwon had told her about Yuna during one of those 3 a.m. conversations. 2 years together. He had ended it 18 months before he met Chisholm. He had described it as something that had run its natural course. No drama, no overlap. Just 2 people who had reached the end of what they were to each other. He had mentioned once that Yuna had told him she couldn't have children. He had said it the way you say something that doesn't matter anymore because it doesn't. Where is Siwon? He doesn't know yet. She arrived while he was in a meeting. I wanted to. I thought I should call you first. Chisholm was quiet for exactly 4 seconds. Then, don't tell him yet. I'm coming. She hung up. She sat still for another 10 seconds. Her hand flat on the desk, her breathing even. She was not panicking. Panic was not useful. What was useful was information. And the first piece of information she needed was a look at this woman's face when she didn't know she was being watched. She drove to the compound. Yuna was in the reception room when Chisholm arrived. Seated, composed, the little boy on her knee with the particular patience of a child who has been coached on how to behave in important situations. She was Korean, slim, beautiful in a calculated way, dressed in something that managed to look both casual and expensive. The child was perhaps 3 years old, dark-haired, with eyes that made Chisholm's chest do something complicated that she put down immediately. Chisholm stood in the doorway for a moment. Yuna hadn't seen her yet. She watched the way Yuna sat. Too still, too composed, the posture of a woman performing patience rather than feeling it. The way her eyes moved to the door every 30 seconds, calculating. The way she held the child, correctly, carefully, but without the unconscious ease of a woman whose body had learned the weight of her own child over 3 years. Chisholm filed all of it. Then she walked in. Yuna looked up. Her expression moved through 3 things in rapid succession. Surprise, assessment, recalibration, before settling on a sympathetic smile that didn't reach her eyes. You must be Chisholm, she said. And you must be Yuna, Chisholm said pleasantly. She sat down across from her without being invited. Let's talk. I really think we should wait for Siwon. Siwon will be here, Chisholm said. But before he gets here, I want to have a conversation with you. Just us. She looked at the little boy. He looked back at her with wide, curious eyes. What's his name? A flicker. Just a flicker. Junyu. How old is he? 3. Chisholm did the maths she had already done in the car. If the child was 3 and Siwon was the father, the conception would have been approximately 4 months before Siwon had ended the relationship with Yuna. During the relationship. Possible. Painful but possible. Except Siwon had told her Yuna said she couldn't have children. He told me you said you couldn't have children, Chisholm said. Calm. Direct. No accusation in her voice. Just a statement, placed on the table between them like a piece of evidence. Yuna's composure shifted. Barely. Things change, she said. Doctors can be wrong. They can, Chisholm agreed. That's why I'd like a DNA test. Immediately. Today if possible. That's not. If your son is Siwon's child, Chisholm said, then a DNA test protects him. It gives him his father's name legitimately. Surely that's what you want. She held Yuna's gaze. Unless you're not confident in what the result will show. The silence lasted 5 seconds. In those 5 seconds, Chisholm watched Yuna's face with the careful attention of a woman who reads people the way other people read books. And what she saw in those 5 seconds was not the confidence of a woman with a legitimate claim. It was the microcalculation of someone adjusting a plan. "Of course I'm confident," Yuna said finally. "Good," Chisholm said. "Then we agree." Saiwen arrived 20 minutes later. Chisholm watched him walk into the room, watched his eyes find the child, watched something move across his face that was not guilt but was devastating in its own way. Shock, and the particular pain of a man confronting something he doesn't know how to hold. He looked at Juno for a long time. Then he looked at Chisholm. She looked back steadily. "I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. But we need to talk." He read all of it. He always read her. Later, after Yuna had been shown to a guest suite and Juno had been settled with a staff member who was very good with children and the compound had resumed its surface appearance of normalcy, Saiwen found Chisholm on the terrace. He stood beside her and looked at the city and said nothing for a long time. "I didn't know," he said finally. "I know you didn't. She told me she couldn't. I know what she told you." Chisholm turned to look at him. "Saiwen, look at me." He looked at her. His face was wrecked in the way of a man trying very hard to hold something together and not entirely succeeding. "I believe you," she said simply. "That's not the question I'm asking." "Then what's the question?" "The question is why now? Why 3 years later? Why did she wait until I was 7 months pregnant with your daughter to walk through that door?" She held his gaze. "That's not grief. That's strategy. And I want to know whose." He was quiet for a moment. "You think someone sent her. I think someone is using her." She turned back to the city. "And I think she's smart enough to be using them right back." Besties, are you feeling Chisholm right now? Because this woman is built different. Drop a fire in the comments and keep watching. It's about to get even more intense. The DNA test happened the following morning. Chisholm arranged it herself. A private clinic, a doctor she trusted. Results in 48 hours. Yuna agreed with the smile of a woman who had expected to be asked and had already decided how to play it. While they waited, the compound became a war zone of a very particular kind. The kind where nothing explodes visibly but every room has a different tension in it depending on who is standing there. Yuna moved through the compound with the ease of a woman making herself at home. She appeared at meals. She spoke to staff by name by the second day. Staff who had been with the Kong household for years and who looked at Chisholm with expressions that said everything they weren't saying out loud. Saiwen's inner circle, 12 men who had built their loyalty to him over years, went quiet in a specific way that Chisholm recognized. Not hostile to her, just uncertain, recalibrating, waiting to see which way the wind was going to blow before they committed their weight to it. She understood. She didn't like it, but she understood. What she did not understand, and what made her sit at her desk at 1 in the morning pulling every publicly available record she could find on Han Yuna, was the money. Yuna had been living in Busan for the past 3 years. Small apartment, modest life, a child on a budget that, when Chisholm worked it out, did not quite match the cost of raising a child in Korea without significant financial support. The gap wasn't enormous, but it was there. And in Chisholm's experience, financial gaps always had a source. She called Adiz in Lagos at 2 in the morning. "I need you to find money," she said. "Not a lot. A small amount. Paid regularly. I need to know where it came from." "Chisholm, it's 2 a.m. "I know. I'll send you what I have. Please." Adiz, who had been Chisholm's person since they were 8 years old and understood that please from Chisholm at 2 in the morning meant something was genuinely wrong, said, "Send it." The next morning Chisholm had a more pressing problem. She was in the kitchen when she overheard, through the partially open door of Saiwen's study, a conversation between Saiwen and 3 of his senior men. She was not supposed to hear it. She heard every word. The argument being made, by a man named Cheol whose voice Chisholm had never trusted, was simple. The Kong Empire needed a male heir. Juno was Saiwen's blood. The situation with the Nigerian wife was, Cheol suggested with the careful phrasing of a man who knew exactly how far he could push, complicated. Perhaps some arrangement could be made that was comfortable for everyone. Comfortable for everyone, Chisholm repeated, stepping through the door. The room went silent. For men, Saiwen and 3 of his most senior lieutenants looked at her. Saiwen's expression moved from surprise to something else immediately. Cheol looked at her with the particular composure of a man who had decided she was a variable he had already accounted for. Mrs. Kong, this is a private. My name, Saiwen said, cutting across him quietly, is shared with this woman, which means there is no meeting in this house that is private from her. He stood, crossed the room, stood beside Chisholm, not in front of her, beside her, which was something different entirely. He looked at Cheol. Say her name. Cheol blinked. What? You referred to my wife as the Nigerian wife. Say her name. The silence was exquisite. Chisholm, Cheol said finally. Mrs. Kong. Good. Saiwen looked around the room. This conversation is over. When we discuss my family's future, we do it with my family present. Are we clear? Nobody spoke. Clear, he said, answering himself, and looked at Chisholm. She looked back at him. Then she walked to the table, pulled out a chair, and sat down. Since I'm here, let's talk about the Empire's future. I have some thoughts. The three lieutenants looked at each other. Then, one by one, they sat back down. That evening, Saiwen found Chisholm on the terrace again. He came to stand beside her and said, Are you okay? I'm always okay. Chisholm. She turned to look at him. He was looking at her with the expression he only ever wore when they were completely alone. All the armor gone, just him, just the version of himself he had decided she was the only person worth showing. It undid her every time. She had never told him that. She suspected he knew. I'm scared, she said. The words cost her something. She was not a woman who admitted fear easily. Not of Yuna. Not of the child. I'm scared of what this does to you. I'm scared of watching you torn between what you feel for that little boy and what we built, and I'm scared of being the thing that makes that harder. He moved in front of her, took her face in both hands. Listen to me, he said. There is no version of this story where I choose anyone over you. There is no version. Do you hear me? Saiwen. I chose you, he said, in that kitchen, before I knew your name properly, before I had any right to feel anything about you. I chose you then, and I choose you every morning, and I will choose you every morning after this one until there are no more mornings. His hands were warm against her face. Tell me you hear me. She looked at him for a long moment. I hear you, she said softly. Good. He pressed his forehead to hers. Now tell me what you're working on. Because I know that look and you are working on something. She almost smiled. Adiz is tracing some money. How long? Another day. Maybe two. And in the meantime? In the meantime, she said, I need to talk to Yuna. Alone. Without an audience. He pulled back. Chisholm. I'm not going to do anything dramatic. I just need to see her face when she doesn't have an audience. She held his gaze. Trust me. He looked at her for a long moment. Always, he said. She knocked on Yuna's guest suite door at 10 the following morning. Yuna opened it in a silk robe, coffee in hand, and for a fraction of a second her face showed surprise before the composure reassembled itself. Chisholm, she said. I wasn't expecting. Can I come in? Chisholm didn't wait for the answer. She walked past Yuna into the suite and sat down on the sofa. Juno was in the bedroom. She could hear a children's program playing. Sit down, Yuna. Yuna sat. Slowly. I'm going to ask you something and I want you to think carefully before you answer, Chisholm said. Not because I'm threatening you, but because the answer you give me in this room right now is going to determine how the next chapter of your son's life goes. And I think you care about that even if I think you've been making very bad decisions. Yuna's jaw tightened. You don't know anything about my decisions. I know you told Saiwen you couldn't have children, Chisholm said. I know Juno is 3, which means you were pregnant when you said that. I know you've been in Busan for 3 years living on a budget that doesn't quite add up without a supplementary income. And I know, she paused, that the timing of your arrival here is very specifically connected to my pregnancy announcement 6 weeks ago. She held Yuna's gaze. So here is my question. Who told you to come now? And what did they promise you? The silence lasted 8 seconds. Chisholm counted. Yuna looked at her coffee. I don't know what you're. Yuna. Chisholm's voice was quiet and final. I'm not the police. I'm not going to have you arrested. I'm a woman talking to another woman about a child who is sitting in that room right now watching cartoons and has no idea his mother brought him here as a weapon. A pause. He deserves better than that. I think you know it. Something moved in Yuna's face. Something that was not the performance. Something underneath it. You don't know what it's been like, she said. Her voice was different, smaller, less constructed. 3 years. Alone. Watching him grow up and knowing who his father was and then why wait 3 years? Chisholm said gently. If you wanted Juno to know his father, why not come 2 years ago? 1 year ago? Why now? The silence was different this time. Someone contacted me, Yuna said finally, very quietly. 6 months ago. They knew about Juno. They said they could help me. Get Siwon to acknowledge him. Get financial support. She stopped. They said if I waited until you announced the pregnancy it would have more impact. Who? Chisholm said. Yuna looked up. A man named Lim Cheol. Chisholm was very still for exactly 3 seconds. Then she stood up, smoothed her dress and said, "Thank you for telling me." She moved toward the door. Stopped. Turned back. Yuna. Whatever happens next, Juno is a Kong. That doesn't change. Siwon will be his father. That doesn't change either. She held the woman's gaze. But the people who used you to get here, they're not going to protect you when this falls apart. I am telling you that as a fact. She left the suite. She walked down the corridor. She took out her phone and called Adiz. Tell me you have something, she said. Oh, I have something, Adiz said. The money traces to a holding account registered to a company called Lim Strategic Partners. Chisholm, that company is a front. It's been flagged twice by Korean financial regulators in connection with organized crime. Specifically, a pause. In connection with a rival organization that has been trying to find leverage against the Kong family for years. Lim Cheol, Chisholm said. How did you? Send me everything you have. All of it. She was already walking. I need it in the next hour. She went to Siwon. She laid it out in front of him. Adiz's findings, what Yuna had told her, the connection to Cheol, and watched his face go through something that was not anger exactly but lived in the same neighborhood as fury and was significantly more dangerous. Cheol, he said, very quietly. He's been in your inner circle for how long? 7 years. And he's been feeding information to a rival organization for how long? I don't know yet. He stood. But I'm going to find out. He looked at her. You got all of this in 48 hours. I had help. Chisholm. She looked at him. I need you to know, he said, that what you just did, what you have been doing since she walked through that door, I have never seen anything like it. In my world. In my life. He crossed the room. You could have fallen apart. You had every right to fall apart. Instead I protect what's mine, she said simply. You are mine, Siwon. This family is mine. I don't fall apart for things that are mine. I fight for them. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he pulled her in carefully because of the pregnancy, always carefully, and held her in the way of a man who has just understood something about the person he married that he will spend the rest of his life being grateful for. Besties, if you are not standing up right now, then I don't know what to tell you. Share this video. Comment, Team Chisholm. Do not move, the best part is coming. The DNA results arrived the following morning. They read them together. Siwon and Chisholm at the kitchen counter, the document between them and the city visible through the window behind it. The result was positive. Siwon was Juno's biological father. Chisholm looked at the document, breathed once. Then she looked up at her husband. Okay, she said. He's yours. Chisholm. That doesn't change what I know about how she got here or who sent her. She folded the document. And it doesn't change what I'm going to do next. He looked at her. What are you going to do? She picked up her bag. Win, she said. Yuna made her move that afternoon. She had contacts, media contacts, arranged through Cheol's network, and she used them. A story appeared online. Korean Mafia heir's secret son. The child his Nigerian wife tried to erase. It was fabricated almost entirely. It was also live and spreading before Chisholm's phone even started ringing. Siwon's inner circle, the loyal ones, the ones who had nothing to do with Cheol, were at the compound within the hour. Cheol was notably absent. When someone called his phone, it went to voicemail. Yuna had also arranged a press gathering at the Grand Joseon Hotel, a public appearance with herself, Juno, and Saiwon, designed to cement the narrative and force his hand in front of cameras. She sent the invitation to Saiwon directly, bypassing Chisholm entirely. Chisholm saw the invitation on Saiwon's phone because Saiwon showed it to her immediately, because they did not keep things from each other. Not anymore. She wants the press gathering in 2 hours, he said. I know. I'm not going without you. I know that too. Chisholm was already pulling out her phone. Call your attorneys. I need them to file something for me before we get there. File what? She looked at him. Everything. They arrived at the Grand Joseon Hotel 40 minutes before the press gathering was scheduled to begin. Yuna was already in the lobby. Composed, Juno dressed in a small outfit that photographed beautifully, a cluster of media contacts hovering at a professional distance. She saw Saiwon first. Then she saw Chisholm beside him and something in her face flickered. Chisholm was wearing gold. Deep, rich, unapologetic gold. A wrap dress that moved beautifully against her brown skin. Her natural hair out in a full crown. 7 months pregnant and looking like the only person in the lobby who knew exactly why they were there and exactly how it was going to end. She walked directly to Yuna. Not to the side. Not to a private corner. Directly to her, in the center of the lobby, in front of every camera and every witness Yuna had assembled. Because if Yuna wanted an audience, Chisholm was going to use it. She placed a folder on the concierge desk between them. Before this goes any further, Chisholm said. Clear, calm, carrying to every corner of that lobby. I think the people in this room should know who has been funding Han Yuna's life in Busan for 3 years, and why, and what organization they work for, and what they were trying to do to the Kong family. She opened the folder. Yuna's composure cracked. You can't. The money, Chisholm continued, traces to Lim Strategic Partners, a front company connected to a rival criminal organization that has been attempting to destabilize the Kong family for years. Yuna was contacted 6 months ago and instructed to present Juno at a specific time, after my pregnancy announcement, for maximum impact. She looked around the room. This was not a mother seeking justice for her child. This was an operation. And the man who ran it from inside the Kong organization, a man named Lim Cheol, has already been identified and removed. The media contacts looked at each other. The story they had come to cover had just become a completely different story. Furthermore, Chisholm said, the Kong family's attorneys have this morning filed the necessary documents to formally acknowledge Juno Kong as Saiwon's son, with full rights, full name, full inheritance entitlement. She looked at Yuna directly. Because that child is innocent. He did nothing wrong. And whatever his mother did, he deserves his father. The silence in the lobby was total. Yuna looked at the folder, looked at Chisholm, looked at Saiwon, who was standing 3 feet behind his wife, watching her with an expression that said everything and gave nothing to anyone else in the room. You had 3 years, Yuna said. Her voice was no longer constructed. It was raw and small. I had him for 3 years alone and you walked in and got everything. I didn't get everything, Chisholm said quietly. I built everything. There's a difference. She looked at Juno, who was standing beside his mother looking at Chisholm with wide, confused eyes. She crouched down. 7 months pregnant, in a gold dress, in a hotel lobby full of cameras, and looked at him at eye level. Hey, she said softly. Are you okay? He shook his head. She opened her arms. He looked at her for 2 seconds, the particular calculation of a small child deciding whether to trust, and then walked into them. Across the lobby, Yuna went completely still. Saiwon's eyes filled. He didn't let it fall, too controlled for that. But it was there, visible, real. The sight of his wife, carrying his daughter, holding his son, in the middle of everything that had tried to break them. Chisholm held Juno until he stopped gripping her. Then she stood, took his small hand, and looked at Saiwon. He crossed the lobby in 5 strides and crouched in front of his son. Hi, he said. His voice was rough. Juno looked at him. Are you my appa? Saiwon's jaw worked. Yes, he said. I am. Yuna left the hotel without speaking to the press. Her media contacts, faced with a story that had inverted entirely, packed up quietly and followed. Cheol was picked up by Saiwon's men that evening. The conversation that followed was not one Chisholm asked about and Saiwon did not detail. the rival organization, once their involvement was public, cut Yuna loose completely. She called Chisholm 2 days later, not to fight, just to say, "I'm sorry. They made it sound like it was the only way." "It wasn't," Chisholm said. "But it's done now. The lawyers contacted me about the arrangement for Juno. Yes, he'll be in Seoul for school terms. He'll have his father. He'll have a little sister." A pause. "And he'll have me, whether you planned for that or not." Yuna was quiet for a long moment. "Why?" "Because he's 3 years old," Chisholm said. "And none of this is his fault." 6 weeks later, Chisholm gave birth to their daughter. She came into the world at 4 in the morning, loud, vigorous, already making her opinions known. And Siwon held her with the careful reverence of a man who has held power his entire life and is holding the most powerful thing he has ever touched. Juno met her the following morning. He stood beside the hospital bed with the solemn concentration of a child who has been told he is a big brother and has decided this is the most serious responsibility he has ever been given. He looked at the baby. He looked at Chisholm. "What's her name?" "Adiz," Chisholm said. "After my cousin who helped save your dad's empire." Juno considered this. "Can I hold her?" "When you sit down and someone helps you." He sat down immediately. Siwon watched his son hold his daughter with an expression Chisholm had never seen on his face before. Something so open and so full it had no name in any language either of them spoke. He looked at Chisholm. She looked back. "You," he said quietly, "are the most extraordinary person I have ever known." "I know," she said. He laughed. A real one, sudden, surprised out of him. She grinned. "I want to do this properly," he said. "Our wedding was right. It was ours. But I want to do something here, in Seoul. With everyone who watched you walk into that lobby and hold that little boy and bring this family through everything it went through. A vow renewal," she said. "Whatever you want to call it. I want to stand in front of every person who doubted you and say, this woman, this one, she is everything." Chisholm looked at him for a long moment. This man who had told her the truth from the beginning, who had stood beside her instead of in front of her, who had watched her fight for his family with tears in his eyes, he hadn't let fall until he was alone. "Okay," she said softly. "But I'm picking the venue." "Obviously," he said. "And the food. Was that ever in question?" She laughed. It was the best sound in that hospital room. Juno looked up from the baby. "What's funny?" "Your father," Chisholm said. "He's very funny when he's trying to be serious." Siwon looked at his son. "Don't listen to her." "She's right though," Juno said seriously. Siwon looked at the ceiling. Chisholm pressed her face into her pillow and shook with laughter. Baby Adiz, entirely unbothered, slept through all of it. 3 months later, on a rooftop in Yongsan with the Han River below and half of Seoul's most important people in attendance, Kang Siwon stood across from his wife in the evening light and said the words he had been collecting since the morning he walked into a kitchen and found a Nigerian woman who would not be flustered by him and decided, in that moment, that he was going to spend the rest of his life making sure she never regretted it. He said, "You walked into my world and made it better than I knew it could be. You fought for my son when you didn't have to. You fought for me when I didn't know I needed it. You are the reason this family exists the way it does, not because I built it, but because you chose to stand in it." He took her hands. "I would burn this entire city to the ground to keep you safe. And I thank God every morning that you are the kind of woman who makes sure I never have to." Chisholm looked at him, this man, her husband, her person, and felt the particular peace of a woman who fought hard for what she has and knows, without any doubt, that it is worth every single thing it cost. "I would do it all again," she said. "Every bit of it. Even the hotel lobby?" "Especially the hotel lobby," she said. "I looked incredible." He laughed. She laughed. Juno, standing beside his grandmother at the front of the crowd, laughed too without knowing why. Baby Adiz, in the arms of Adiz from Lagos who had flown in and was already completely obsessed with her namesake, made a sound that might have been approval. The city shone below them. The river moved. And Chisholm Kong, who had come to Seoul for jollof rice and stayed for the rest of her life, leaned into her husband and let the evening hold them both. It was, by any measure, exactly enough. But in a building across the city, a man watched the rooftop celebration through a long lens camera. He had been watching Chisholm Kong for 3 months. Since the hotel lobby, since she placed that folder on the concierge desk and dismantled everything he had spent 2 years building. Lim Cheol was gone. His organization was fractured. But he was not. He lowered the camera, picked up his phone. The woman is the problem, he said. Not Siwon. Her. Find me everything. Part 2 is coming, besties. And this time, they're not coming for the Empire. They're coming for Chisholm specifically. Because they finally understand what Siwon has always known. She is the most dangerous person in the Kong family. And she always has been. Oh my goodness, besties. If you watch this story all the way to the end, you are a certified member of this family, and I love you completely. Did the hotel lobby scene make your jaw drop? Did Juno walking into Chisholm's arms destroy you? Did Siwon's speech at the vow renewal make you cry? Tell me everything in the comments below. Like this video right now, it takes 2 seconds and it means the world. Share it with every person in your life who deserves a story this good. And subscribe if you are not already part of the Afrohan Tales family. We drop new stories every single week and you do not want to miss what's coming next. Drop in the comments. Team Chisholm. And tell me, did she handle that hotel lobby the way you expected? Because I don't think anyone saw that folder coming. And if you want part 2, where the real enemy finally steps out of the shadows and comes for Chisholm directly, comment part 2 and let me know. This is Afrohan Tales, where love is dangerous, loyalty is everything, and the right woman always wins. See you in the next one. I love you all.